All right, so as predicted, Adam Azim has now vacated his EBU title at £140, meaning that, well, he doesn't have to go through ahead and fight Dalton Smith. What happens to Adam Azim? Most likely he'll fight Harlem Eubank next. What happens to Dalton Smith? Anyone's guess. I would imagine they'll try and get a crack at that EBU title because it's a good title to have. But against whom, we will see. Eddie Hearn is not best placed, to say the least. Eddie Hearn, on a Matchroom boxing interview, said, and I quote with regards Ben Shalom, "You can talk about we're a victim of the game. They don't want to work with us. It's absolute rubbish. When Fabio Wadley, Fraser Clark got ordered, they pulled out. They've just done it again with Adam Azim versus Dalton Smith. Jaya Pataya versus Riakport, they pulled out. Caroline Dubois versus Beatrice Faria, is that how you say that name? They pulled out. Now Siobhan Clark is mandatory for Isaac Chamberlain, and they won't even mention his name. You're seeing the benefit, the boxing of Matchroom and Queensbury working together. 5 brilliant fights there, and everyone they haven't been willing to fight. So Eddie Hearn is not best pleased with boxer Ben Shalom, and obviously bringing up the fact that him and Frank Warren are doing this Matchroom versus Queensbury show. Monday fortnight, we're supposed to be having the press conference. Also, they're also sharing cards as well. You know, we're seeing, Matchroom Queensbury shows. We're seeing Matchroom Queensbury fighters on each other's cards, like over in Saudi Arabia. Joe Cordina is a Matchroom fighter, and he's on the undercard of Fury Usyk. Fury is obviously a Queensbury fighter. Jaya Pataya is obviously on there. We've seen Jaya Pataya fight Elazara. So they are working together. Their heads have finally been bashed together after all these years, and 2 big sacks of money were placed on the table, and that can mend a lot of bridges, we'll say the least. But Ben Shalom, and listen, right, whatever you want to say about Eddie Hearn, right, whatever you want to say about him, he's right, really, in this sense, isn't it? Fabio Wadley, Fraser Clark, you can say, well, it did end up getting done in the end. Yeah, but it was ordered last year and they didn't go ahead with it. And Fraser Clark didn't seem best pleased about that. With Adam Azim, Dalton Smith, it was almost as if once Adam Azim picked that title up and it was like, Dalton Smith's going to be a mandatory for the EBU title. You just knew. You didn't even have to think, like, could even Team Smith, pull somewhere. You just knew. You were like, that's gone. And yeah, it is a duck for anyone. It is a duck, in my opinion. I'm not going to have as much of a go at Adam Azim as I am with Ben Shalom. And look, I don't get pleasure out of having to go with Ben Shalom. With Adam Azim, right? Adam Azim, I think if push came to shove, he'd fight Dalton Smith. But with Ben Shalom is obviously trying to make a star out of Adam Azim, fair enough. And Adam Azim has some potential there. Yeah, he definitely does. But if you are willing to put your guy in there for an EBU title, bear in mind, right, there are IBF European titles, WBO European, there's these cricket European titles. They're not the real thing. They will just get you, ironically, they will get you a ranking, but it's a bit of a false ranking in reality because, you're fighting whoever for an EBU title or for a WBO European title. It's not the full EBU title where you're normally going to face a good fighter. It just so happened that Adam Azim, more so Ben Shalom, were like, oh, that guy, I forget who it was now, doesn't look too good. Right, boom, there you go. Picks up a nice, easy European title, gets you a top 15 rank, and it's a well-recognised, well-respected title, the EBU title. It's no shame if that's the highlight of your career, winning an EBU title. Well, you've done pretty well for yourself, to be honest with you, because there's no shame in that. There's really no shame in it. But it also brings some responsibilities. You get mandatories. And the minute one comes along, it's just see you later. Well, if you're experienced enough to fight for that vacant title, if you're experienced enough to fight at European level, you're experienced enough to defend it. And furthermore, Dalton Smith is 27 years old. They're saying, he's trying to get Adam Azim in experience. Well, Harlem Eubank is undefeated and he's 30 years old. So, I don't where's the logic there? 27 years old trying to get him while young, 30 years old, A-okay. Jaya Pataya, Riakpor, yep. Caroline, I don't follow the women's game like that, so I don't know the ins and outs with that one. But what's the recurring team? It's not Eddie Hearn, it's not Frank Warren, it's Boxer. It's the recurring team. And listen, with Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, they've had their heads mashed together. They're working together. They're doing the Matchroom Queensbury 5v5. It's all very good. We're all happy to see it because it's giving us some good fights, it's giving us some good cards. And we're also seeing some of their cards in the UK look a lot better. With Warren, he's got a card with Sam Noakes next Saturday. Eddie Hearn obviously has that US show this week. He has the Manchester show next week. He has the Next Gen show on the 27th, as well as, Haney versus Garcia. Obviously, that's a co-promotion, but you get the point as part of Matchroom. So they've got an active April Frank Warren has a card. I know he has at least one this month. He's got another York Hall show, I think, next month. And he also obviously has Undisputed next May. Or next month, I should say. Next May. No, next month. Next May. Well, next May is next month. But when you look at Ben Shalom, a boxer, he's got that lower price show in May. He's not got anything in April. And then he has a Coley, which is co-promoted, and it's over in Poland. It's not even in the UK. So, look, who is doing better? Eddie and Frank. You know, Eddie and Frank, when I see them go up against Ben Shalom, with Eddie, it's like man versus boy. With Frank, it's like king versus jester. You know, that's what it's really like. With Frank Warren, you get the impression Eddie Hearn is like Gordon Ramsay. You know, he'll have a go, he'll have a dig. With Frank Warren, it's like Marco Pierre White. He will absolutely tear you to sunder. You know, it's not going to be pretty. And that's what it's like with Ben Shalom. It really is. It's recurring. And what's happening there, right, is that Ben Shalom, without even thinking, when you think like, oh, you know, such and such has a title, you know, and he's a boxer fighter, and oh, his next mandatory is a Queensberry fighter, or his next mandatory is a Matchroom fighter, you're just like, well, that's not going to happen. You don't even need to think. You're just like, well, that's not going to happen. And Ben Shalom, I think, is gaining the reputation of being somewhat difficult to work with if you're external. Like, if it's obviously internal, you know, we can make, you know, this fight against this fight. They're both boxer fighters, you know. And even then, you know, you're kind of like, will it? But when it's external, dealing with Warren, and I know he's dealt with Warren a few times, but lately he hasn't, and dealing with Hearn, it seems like that's never going to happen. When you're, like, say, the Saudis, like Turki Al Sheikh, and you're thinking, will we bring Boxer into the fold? Well, at least with Eddie and Frank, they're willing to work together, and, you know, Billy Joe versus Demetrius Andre, that never happened, but that would have been Eddie versus Frank back then. That didn't happen. Obviously, we know what happened with Billy Joe and the nasal spray. But they have done it, or tried to do it in the past anyway. And there have been some occasions where Box Nation fighters, Bradley Skeet went over and fought Sam Egerton on a Sky Sports show with Matchroom. He wore the Box Nation logo on his shorts. They have done it in the past. You know, we obviously haven't seen them face to face or anything like that, but it has happened. Ben Shalom, God knows. And again, if you're trying to, you know, say, look, could we bring some boxer fighters in there? And you're like, well, he doesn't want to work with this guy. He pulled out this. You're gaining that bad reputation. You're gaining a reputation of being difficult to work with. If you're difficult to work with, others aren't going to want to work with you. It's as simple as that. Or they're certainly not going to want to do you any favors. If you're difficult to work with and you have to work with someone, it's like, well, I could do this, but I'm not going to do you any big favors. And again, with Ben Shalom, I think that's what's happened. And it's funny, isn't it? I think the last time Warren, a Queensberry fighter, was on a boxer show, it might have been Echo Usman, is that how you say his name? Might have been him, and I'm not sure when that was. Was it 2022 or 2023? Because I'm just thinking, has Ben Shalom really, like, are we noticing again, and we are noticing it, but are we noticing it even more now in the sense of he doesn't even want to go outside a boxer since Adam Smith left, or took his, you know, hiatus for a year, we all know why, and then was just, you know, see you later. Because with boxing on Sky, it just seems like it's missing someone like Adam Smith. It's missing someone who understands the game, and Ben Shalom being inexperienced in this game, and certainly, I know he'd done some of those boxer shows and stuff like that, small stuff, but to go from small to a massive platform like Sky, you know, he's obviously inexperienced at that level, and he's got no one there who has 30 years of boxing background, of looking after boxing, head of boxing on Sky to help him along. And I think we're seeing Ben Shalom make bad decisions. Again, at the end of the day, as soon as we found out Dalton Smith was going to be mandatory for Adam Azim, we were like, well, that title's getting vacated. You didn't even need to think. If you're Eddie Hearn or you're Frank Warren, you're like, oh, this is great, because I'm going to be able to I'm just waiting for him to do something like that, to pull out a purse bid, and then I'm going to go to town on him. If you're Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren, you're just waiting for that, because you just know it's going to come. And inevitably it did with this instance. So yeah, Ben Shalom not covered himself in glory again. Show last weekend was great. Needs to keep that standard going. It's going to be difficult. And again, I point out that it's going to be difficult because he's not got a great deal of fighters. I understand that. But he's not even attracting any of these fighters. Like, I don't think any of these fighters are looking at Sky as a viable option now. They're looking at Queensberry, they're looking at Matchroom. If you're certainly probably UK-based fighters, and there's an Olympic cycle coming up, it's going to be real interesting to see who they go with. Are they going to go with Boxer? Are they going to go with Queensberry or Matchroom? But how many are going to go to Boxer? Because that's going to be the real interesting thing. Because if he's not even able to get this next cycle. He's not even able to get a good chunk of them, the delicious Oreos and people like that. Well, he's up, you know what's creek without a paddle. I think moving forward. That's what I think. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on Eddie Hearn's interview, on his comments on Ben Shalom, and do you agree or disagree? Do you think that no, actually, Eddie Hearn's in the wrong and Ben Shalom is right to protect his fighters and stuff like that? Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. Hope you enjoyed it. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. Lads, I'll talk to you. Peace.